And we need to be grounded to who we are, because that's such a big factor nowadays. There's so much technology, there's so much busyness in our external world, that breathing and that breath helps us feel even more focused and in tune to the person that we're having the conversation with. It feels more like, oh, Lori's leading into my conversation, as long as you're not like deep breathing erratically, right?
Welcome back to another episode of the Inside the Orange podcast. And today we are going to be joined by the incredibly inspirational Lori Chenger. Before we get into today's episode, though, here's how you can get in touch with the podcast. At the Inside the Orange podcast, we're about creating positive change through organisation, reading, activity, nutrition, gratitude, and engagement. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram at Inside the Orange, on X at Orange Watts, and the Inside the Orange podcast on Facebook. We want you to reach out and help build the community. And don't forget that we're doing our Walk for Autism 40 for 40 on the 19th of July this year. Here, as ever, is just some information of how you can support us via our GoFundMe and on the day. So here it comes. We are back and on the road again. This year we are doing our 40 for 40. We are walking 40 miles for the Anna Kennedy Online Autism Charity, raising awareness, acceptance and promoting inclusion of autism and autistic people. We are going to be going out on the 19th of July for our longest walk ever, and you can join us and support us via our GoFundMe page, available in the show notes and description. Check it out and support us today, and let's make 2025 an amazing year supporting this great charity. So into today's conversation with Lori, and it was such an inspirational conversation, which has made me think so much since we had it, and I'm delighted to bring it to you today. So here is the fantastic conversation I had with Lori Chenger. So my guest today is someone I'm really excited to talk to. It's someone who is described as an infinity mindset coach, a hostage negotiator of the mindset, a motivational speaker, international best-selling author. So I'm sure you will be joining me that we are so blessed to be joined by Lori Chenger today. So Lori, welcome to the Inside the Orange podcast. You join us from Canada, so a little bit of a time delay. I'm
Yes.
Evening in the UK recording this. You're middle of your day, but how has your day been so far?
It's been great so far. Sun is shining, good Canadian weather, not too cold, but unpredictable.
How we love it to be, of course, and very similar to the UK, I will say.
Right.
Awesome stuff. So, Lori, firstly, thank you so much for joining me today. We connected through a Facebook group for podcast guests, and you said, Rich,
Yes.
I'll come and have a chat, and here we are today recording. So again, thank you so much for joining us on this today.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invitation. See, the pandemic had some good things about it. If we reframe our thinking, the world has opened up to us thanks to Zoom.
Absolutely. And again, it's that way of mindset, which I'm sure we're going to get to, that you've just very beautifully started alluding to there. So when we were setting this up, we were kind of talking via email, and we were talking about the segments of the podcast being organisation, reading, activity, nutrition, gratitude and engagement. I've got to keep remembering them because I've got to keep saying them. But we talked with yourself about organisation, but specifically organisation of the mind. Can you give us a breakdown what you mean by that?
I'm referring to being very conscientious of what we're thinking because what we're thinking is going to give us a feeling, and the thoughts comes first and then the behavior. So being very conscientious of, why am I choosing this behavior? What was the thought that caused it? So if I become very conscientious of that during the day, I can act to grow. I can have positive change and growth mindset. But it takes work and it takes conditioning, just like anything else.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And again, I always say to people, I talk a million miles a minute. But does organization of mind also include just taking that breath before you speak, showing that behavior as well?
Sure, it helps keep you present. It helps you keep you grounded. And we need to be grounded to who we are, because that's such a big factor nowadays. There's so much technology, there's so much busyness in our external world, that breathing and that breath helps us feel even more focused and in tune to the person that we're having the conversation with. It feels more like, oh, Lori's leaning into my conversation, as long as you're not like deep breathing erratically, right?
And does that kind of come back to mindfulness? Is it that kind of approach that it starts with, that being aware of being in the moment of, even with conversations?
It does. It helps keep your minds more positive, because the breath is a signal to relax. And we forget to do that, right? And so the more that we're conscientious, again, all things are interconnected. So if we're taking that pause and we're feeling the moment, it's like, okay, now I can be more aware of, what do I want to choose in my moment? Do I like that thought? No, not really. Okay, is it serving me for a higher purpose? No. Is it moving me forward to who I want to be? Nope. Is it taking me into the past where I don't really need to be today? So let me just come here to this moment and focus.
And you said it takes a lot of work. So how long have you been working on that specific, that way of thinking? Is it something that's relatively new, or has it been something you've been trying to master for quite a while?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I think that lots of things that we do, we inherently know that it's a part of our truth, but it takes the experiences to have us come back to that and go, oh, that's an aha moment. I've really been working and trying to get my life to this point for a long period of time. But again, we don't slow down and stop and think. Like, we do not live our life linear as though a lot of people think, right? To me, it's more of a circle,
Mm.
right? I'm living my life in a circle, and it's always coming back to me, whether I choose to see that it is me. And as they say, it's always an inside job. So it starts in here first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, so obviously that's the organization of the mind. Do you use things like journaling? Does that help to get it out of your mind as well? When it's not conversation based, of course. Do you feel you have to write down your thoughts a lot to keep mindful of this?
I do a lot of journaling, yeah, but I don't feel that it's a need or a must. Um, it will appear that things take a long period of time, but that's only because we haven't practiced them. So any habit that we have, if we go, oh, that's really easy, it's because we've done it a long period of time. But if I introduce something new and say, wow, I don't know if I can do that, I'm not good at this. Well, that's because you've not practiced it. It's not become a habit. Doesn't mean it's difficult. It means you just have to do it with consistency.
Absolutely. A really kind of breathtaking book that I read was Atomic Habits by James Clear, where he talks about
Yes.
how to build those kind of habits. And it, like you said, it takes 60 plus days or however long it takes to do that. But obviously, once you're doing it a long time, that will become your norm. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yeah. And if we think about it in terms of like it takes 60 days, really it's what we do every day, but we're organizing our mind. We go back to organizational thinking. It's like, oh, wait, I already do this, but now I'm conscientious of doing it. So is it really taking me 60 days, or was it 60 pre-days before where I was already doing it, didn't realize it? Somebody told me this is what I need to do. Now I'm aware. And because I'm aware, I can move forward quicker. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And again, it really builds onto as I say, the reading of Atomic Habits about bringing it into life. And I mentioned reading there. So when I was giving your bio, there's a lot on your bio, Laurie. There is a lot of things on there, but one of it was being a best-selling author, and that includes children's books. So
Yes.
what I was going to ask you today then is, how impactful then do you believe reading is for children to kind of set them on that right path for their mindset journey? Do you feel that's something that needs to be considered, or is it just encouraging children to read more?
No, reading serves so many purposes, but one of the main purposes that I feel about reading, especially with children, is imagination. Because the more imagination we have, the better we are at finding solutions. Because we become very creative and we're curious, right? And so to me, that's why, because the words give us pictures and images. And if I can, have this beautiful image and switch the image around in my mind, it will be that much easier for me if I have a problem to be solution focused. Right. So I kind of look at it like that. Besides, just learning to read is increasing my motor neuron pathways and allowing my brain to keep growing. And that's something that we're really taking away from our kids when we introduce more and more technology. I mean, technology serves a purpose. We can have this Zoom call, but if I'm not having fine motor movements and gross motor movements, my neural pathways are not growing.
Yeah, that's a amazing point. And it really, it's a really sad point, really, because I think when we think about children and when they're growing up, and they are the creative mindset, they're constantly asking why, and they're constantly being told,
Right?
we'll get to that. And then as adults, we're being, well, when we grow into kind of that thinking process, we're being challenged to ask why again, but we kind of almost stifle that from childhood. Do you think that's fair in what I'm saying in terms of the mindset building?
Yes, I do. There seems to be a point when it's like we become conditioned all over again. Like, sit still, raise your hand, hurry up and do this. Hurry up and slow down is what we say, right? That's the message that we get. But reading also, when we have imagination and we're reading, it gives me a connection, an inner connection to who I am. And that I see because I work a lot with youth. I teach an addictions program part-time. And if we're not connected internally, we're running outside of ourselves and seeking substances to fill that void. So the more imagination I have, think of our artists, and if we're writing and even doing a podcast, that takes creativity, and that that is coming from you. You're the source.
Absolutely, but this series and what we built this new season on started with me reading more. It's incredible that I was reading more, and it then sparks your ideas, and you're going for walks and you're thinking about things. But you're right, it does start. But we're battling, you talk about addictions, but we're battling Netflix, we're battling YouTube again. And you say so rightly, we're doing a Zoom call. I'm talking about things like YouTube, which I use, Spotify, which I use, but can distract people from developing their own mindset, it seems.
Yes. Yes. I wrote a chapter in a book called Our Forgotten Children, and it's compiled by Sarah Troy. And so the chapter that I wrote on is youth and addictions, computer addictions. And I gave some simple strategies of how, even as adults, we can retrain ourselves to not be overtaken by a computer. We need it, but we can also stop and celebrate who we are as we're using that computer, right? So picture a child who has to come in and maybe he's just doing it for free time, right? And he's playing a computer game. You sit down first and you go, okay, what's in my area? You're grounding yourself, right? What do I see? Oh, I see a cup. I see, whatever, my dog, right? And then I say, okay, what's my goal? Okay, I want to reach level 1. You reach level 1, you stop, you pause, and you celebrate it. And now you're learning to disconnect from technology, even if it's for a few minutes, reconnect to yourself and start again. We don't teach that. We teach to sit still and get the most done that we can in that moment.
Yes, it's incredible because, and like you say, we're battling against Netflix that will tease the next program or that next level of the game. Just have a little look further at this. All those things that, all those little dopamine or things that are trying to
Yes,
pull you in to say, no, stay with me. They're there for a reason, aren't they? They're there to keep you in that.
exactly.
But yeah, it's a really great place that you're coming from. And you're saying you do it with children then. So is there an age where they're too young to start this, or do you believe that once they're consciously using screens, that it could actually then be re-engaged to look at this? Where does that start with children?
Are you asking me where does starting to teach them to step back from computers start?
Yeah, because obviously we want to read with our children growing up, but yes, yeah, maybe when it's that addiction point, then maybe.
Well, for me, my belief is that addiction, it starts in the mind. It's a mindset. So again, if we go back to organization of our mind, right? What am I thinking of that I'm running from, away from? Right? So can I teach my kids different thoughts? Okay, what are you thinking right now? What are you feeling? How are you feeling? Without being, like the mom that's the psychologist and the mom, right? It's just like, oh, so I'm really curious to know, why is it you want to do that? That's a pause too, right? And so it depends on what ages we inadvertently start conditioning our children through modeling, right? I'm on the phone. So I think, oh, mom's on the phone. I'm going to be on the phone. They're on the computer. I'm on the computer. And right now, kindergarten has computers.
Mm. So it's conditioning. Yeah, absolutely, it's conditioning. They're seeing, again, and it's there's so many paradoxes in there. We want people, we appreciate we're in a world of working parents, but they're going to see
Yeah,
parents using screens. And then they're going to say, well, that's perfectly acceptable. So you're right. It's already, Laurie, it's an amazing train of thought that you've even given me today. It is absolutely blowing my mind. You speaking about your reading still, you also do writing for magazines. So you've done something for Wellness on Time magazine, am I right? About well, I'm presuming about wellness. So that was the January edition that you kind of featured in. So what was the kind of focus on that? And give us more into the other aspects that you might have done with your writing.
well, with the magazine Wellness on Time, every 2 or 3 months they have an edition out and they have a theme. So at that time, I don't recall exactly what the theme was when I wrote about, but I'm writing again for April.
Mm.
And that one is the spring edition, Spring Wellness. And so I'm writing again about a mindset and how we have an emotional journey of language and how we can reframe that by using language that's more user friendly. And I'll give you an example if you like. How many times do you sit in an environment and hear people talking about harmful language? I'll shoot them an email,
Mm.
right? Things like that. I'll shoot them an email. Um, this is a battle today, different conversations like that. And it's really very negative. And it's really, you could call it, if you wanted to, on a continuum, it's violent language that we're using all the time, all the day. We become conditioned to it, right? Oh,
Mm.
I die for that. I kill for this. I have a bucket list.
Yeah, it's
So
scary,
I,
isn't it?
I say, like, be aware, conscientious, again, organize the mind, right? I can send an email. I can have a life list. I'd rather have that because now I'm focused on living.
Yeah, but again, do you know what's absolutely brilliant today? And again, I'm already enjoying the conversation because you're making me think differently. Again, how many times that we use this, it's almost become corporate language, hasn't it? It's almost
Yes.
that's a perfectly acceptable thing to say, but break
Yep.
down those words. And when people look at maybe their mental health at work, I'm feeling low at work, I'm feeling depressed at work. Could it
Yeah,
be we might be using that language that's pushing us into that direction?
exactly. Because if you believe in the philosophy that all words have power and that words are creating energy, then how are you feeling at the rest of the day? And how responsible were you for how you're feeling, right? And do you feel better? Like, start practicing it and say, if I, for the next, 30 minutes, am aware of using more positive words and really tune into how I'm feeling, do I feel a little lighter? Do I feel a little better?
Honestly, I'm sitting here now because I've been doing a lot of social media for the podcast, and I've had days at work and days at work. For everyone, we all finish our work day, and that's quite a day. And then the first thing I do is I go and do my social media for my podcast, which uses words such as positive, such as inspirational, such as motivational, and I feel better. That
Yeah.
can't just be coincidence,
Right?
can it? That can't.
Yeah, I know. It's like, whoa. It's just, simple little twists that we can do when we're thinking,
Yeah.
right? And being conscientious of, why am I not feeling the best that I could be?
Mm.
And you're right, like, you're doing all of these wonderful things for podcasts, but during that, do you like shoot somebody an email, or do you go, oh shoot, I did that wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
It's
And the other way that I look at language is, we box ourselves into a specific feeling by ending our sentence with a period. And I say, change it to a comma. I'm so tired, period. Okay, you've got nowhere to go. And so if you feel that in your body, do you feel restricted? But if I put a comma there and say, I'm really tired, comma, I could go take a rest. I can feel some growth in there. I can feel some expansion. So don't box your life in with sentences that go, nope, I can't, I'm busy. I don't know the answer, comma. Well, who do I know that could help me? You see how we can work through our own life with language?
Yeah, and just a question to clarify that, because that's an amazing
Yeah.
point. Is that just when we get into that end of that period comes when you've said something negative? So if you finish that bit on a positive, could you then put the period in there? Is that fine? So
Well, sure, you
yeah.
could, but do you want a more expansive life? Do you want your life to end there on that good moment? Or do you want to go, oh, and there's more good coming? Do you want to put in a 3 or 4 commas and then have a period? It's up to you.
Okay, so there's no defined way. Look, if it's got to finish on a positive, you want to get to the point where do I want to finish this part of the
Right.
conversation
Yeah.
or mind? Yeah, that's incredible. That's a really good
So,
point.
right, I could say, like, oh, I'm feeling really good today. The sun is shining. Okay, that can end. All right. I'm feeling really good today. The sun is shining. I wonder where else I'll go. I have a meeting today. Oh, that energy keeps going. And then I can end it. And our mind, again with imagination, knows that there's more coming
Mm.
in this vibration of me feeling good.
Awesome. I can just feel myself smiling more the more this conversation's going on. And I think it's because of it's the positive language. It's got to it again, you've got a fan in me straight away because I'm really listening to something. It's so true. It's so simple, but it's so effective. And it's something we're ignoring. It's something we're just getting lost in, that we're not doing this. It's really incredible.
Right.
Looking
And
at how we're doing that then. So you've talked about addictions. Now I've said, I'm coming into this, I've come in with a food addiction. That's something I'm battling. It's something I've been big all my life. And now part of the positive change was getting things in shape. But you talk about addictions with what you do. Is
right.
that the opposite of what you've just talked about, that we get ourselves in an area that we don't then come out of? We get kind of locked in with whatever that addiction is. And is it a case that we're just focused on that locked inness? Does that make sense from the question I've just asked? I hope it does.
I think I'm following you. Well, movement is part of this when we have an addiction, because it's a heaviness, because again, we're ending it with a period,
Mm,
right? And if we're connected and we realize that our body movement is in contingency to what we're saying. So think about this. I'm really tired, period. Does your body want to keep moving? kind of just sits there.
Mm.
Right? But if I'm putting commas, I feel like, oh, well, I could still go do this. I have more energy. And so when we think about an addiction, like, oh, I drink too much, period, your life just goes like this,
Mm.
right? And I can't think of any solutions, and I'm only thinking about all my problems and what I need to do to relieve that, so I drink. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, no, it does. So if I go back to what I said about having a food addiction, if I finish
Yes.
that with that period, with that full stop, and say right there, I have a food addiction, I'm not doing anything about it. I'm just living in that food addiction. But if I
Right.
say
You've
the
owned
word,
it.
I have a food addiction, comma, I want to do something about it, that's more likely to drive the change than just saying this is my problem. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yes, right? Exactly. So it's great to own it, but now what's your action step? What are you going to do with that? Right? It's like I come over to your house and I bring you a present and it's all wrapped and I say, here you go. And then I pull it back. Well, what's the good of that? I want to open it, right?
Absolutely. That's again, what an interesting way to look at it. And you mentioned in there as well about kind of moving and getting around. Is that physical fitness? Is that physical getting out and doing just equally as important for the mind as the language you use? Is it being a little bit active, more active than we were the day before or than we were an hour ago? Shutting the laptop down and going for that walk. Is it as vital as people as it sounds?
It sure is, because energy can get stuck in your body.
Hmm.
And so if you're having a bad day sitting there at the computer and you close it down and you just sit there, the energy is nowhere to circulate. Okay. So the exercise is movement. Now, this might sound kind of way out there for people who are just listening in and have never heard it before, but I just say, have a curious mind, right? Because a curious mind is an open mind. And just, maybe it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody else, but just, stop and be conscientious, right?
Hmm.
If I have movement, the energy is going through my body. If I'm just sitting there, it's got nowhere to go. My mind has nothing to do. So my mind is going to start finding familiar feelings. If I'm sitting there, when else do I just sit there? When I'm sad. Okay, brain says, I'll give you some sadness. But if I'm moving, my brain has to find something that matches that. Oh, well, I remember, being happy. Okay, does that make sense? So we really do need movement in our life because it keeps the energy going. It keeps the motor neuron pathways growing. So my brain can keep remembering, relearning.
Yeah. And is there a challenge though when we are, so say people are going for walks, they're getting to their part of the day and they go, right, I'm going for a walk. Can that physical activity be too distracting? Or do you think it is purely just positive? It is going to just refocus you on getting that energy, getting that air into your lungs and everything like that? Or could we? I think that's where people struggle. If they're going to step away from work for 5 minutes, they're going to lose their day. They're going to lose their train of thought. Is that a real fear, or is it just positive to get out and do that walk if you feel you need it, if you're at that point?
Well, you're kind of asking two different things. So
Sorry.
if a person is sitting there and saying, "Well, I got too much going on, I want to go for a walk," how is that not a good thing? You're being conscientious and you're finding a good way to relieve what you've already identified as some stress. Okay, I need to leave it. We become conditioned to saying, well, if I leave now, I'm not going to get work done. You're already not getting work done. You've already told yourself that. And so you've decided that you want to keep yourself in a comfort zone of familiarity that is not working for you. Because just because something is comfortable does not mean it's good for you.
Yeah, and then we get back to that addiction again, aren't we? I'm a workaholic. I can't step away from the screen. Yes, you can. Yes, you
Right?
can, but you're choosing not to.
Exactly. Because as they say, whatever you are not changing, you are also choosing.
Yes. Yeah. It is It's an amazing point. And I think, as I say, it's just, it's enlightening to hear because, as I said, and I'm not diminishing the work that you do, but it's really simple, but we just don't focus on it, do we? We just don't pay it that attention.
I
And
know. And
please carry on.
well, I was just going to say, I don't mind at all that you call it simple because that's what it is. It's like, wouldn't you like to know that you can phone somebody and have ease with it rather than phone somebody and say, okay,
Yeah.
get 5 pieces of paper ready. I'm going to give you a formula. And by the way, do you have $7,000? It's going to take a lot of work rather than this is easy. Do this,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
continue to do this. Can you imagine how much healthier that perhaps the world would be if doctors, and I love doctors, so don't start saying, oh, she's all against doctors. We all have a place in the world, right? But if any professional gives us a piece of paper and says, okay, this is what you must do, period, and I go do that, wouldn't it be nice if they said, okay, I want you to try going outside and doing this and doing this. What am I going to hang on to? Because I've built that person up as a professional in my mind. I'm going to believe it and I'm going to go do it. But, we get caught up in, we give them one thing, we give them the medication, and we don't teach them to find other things. That's another department. So maybe you have a doctor or a professional that prefers you to a social worker. Now I go do that, right? So we all work together in a wonderful way. I just, for me in my world, it would be nice if we could be more interconnected.
Yeah. It's again, there's so many little paradoxes in what you talk about of actually this would fix this with, or this is meaning this would happen. But how do we do that then? Is it just, do we use, and we've talked about it a few times already, the changing world, do we use the fact that we've now got information at our fingertips? Do places like social media, and we all use different aspects of social media, should they be not forced, maybe to say the wrong word, but should they be regulated to make sure that we've not just got doom and gloom scrolling, that we've actually got things of try this? Is it a case when you say that interconnected world that there's just more accessibility to what we're talking about?
Well, for me, I would like that, right? But I'm open to thinking about that. But we become very conditioned. And a great example of that, where you can really see the world being conditioned, is when the pandemic hit. So how many of our professionals, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about any professional, it's just what comes to mind. How many times pre-COVID did we ask a doctor, a dentist, or whoever, can you phone me? No, can't be done. You have to come into the office. And we all live by that rule. COVID hits. I know I had doctors phone me many times, right? Like, oh, yeah, I'll do a phone consult. I'll do a phone. All kinds of professionals were doing phone consults. All of a sudden, your pattern of thinking changes and the world opens up.
Yeah. It's conditioning occupation as well as just being the single person. It's then conditioning what we can and can't do. Absolutely.
Right? And again, nothing against any professional, but we've all been taught this, right? And when we taught it, it becomes a habit, and we don't question the habit. We just keep doing and keep doing and keep doing until something doesn't work or something new is introduced, and then we either accept it or we push back from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great trade. Just to make sure we're kind of clear, because obviously we've talked about activity, we've talked about addiction and things like that. It's still right. So people who are listening to the podcast, if they do have addictions that they do, it is still the right thing to go and see your doctor, your GP. It's still the right place to go, isn't it? What we're discussing today is
absolutely
ways to support it. But as I say, we're trying to champion that more GPs, more doctors are actually talking about sending people your way, Laurie, to say, actually, can we try this way? But like you say, there's lots of thought patterns to try and break this kind of behavior, isn't there? And this addiction pattern. And that's all you're kind of saying, isn't it? Let's just make it more available. Let's make it more a
right?
conversation.
Yes, by all means, like support, like go to your doctors, keep doing what is working for you. But I know that if I phone a doctor today and make an appointment, I might not get in for 4 weeks,
Mm.
right? So here's some tools to help you in the meantime. And again, when you were saying like, well, I want it to go into the future. Okay, here's some tools that you can imagine today. I'm doing this. In 3 weeks, I'm going to my doctor. Already, I might be bridging some hope there. Okay, I'm going to try this until I get to see my healthcare provider.
Mm. Just on that point, going back to the organization of the mind, then, how far ahead do you feel planning? Because you've got to be in the moment, surely, but obviously you want to be future planning. But we're coming up to another paradox there. What's the best way, or how does it work? Is it every individual different? What's the kind of future planning process you'd say with that organization of the mind?
Well, I think that's an individual component that people have to, also put into their comfort zone, right? Because if I'm thinking positive today, like right now at 1 o'clock my time, my future is 101 my time. My future is 1:30 my time. I don't need to go 6 months into my future. I can just say, what's my next minute going to be like? What's the next hour going to be like? Because for some people, there's too much distance between today and 6 months,
Mm.
right? So do what is best for you on increments.
That's again an amazing point, and exactly what you were saying at the beginning, isn't it? It's about being in that breath rather than what does over there look like. But it's a really interesting point. One of the things, again, it's based, I'm sure it's based on addiction aspects as well, but it really intrigued me when I read it about you, and you described as a hostage negotiator of the mindset. So how serious then is this battle with up here? How is it the same as dealing? And again, I say that very flippantly with the wording I'm going to use there, but
Mhm.
why do you? I'll change the question a little bit, but why do you use such a severe terminology of what that is from your mindset recovery, I suppose?
To make you sit up and think, okay, I had a thought, and the only thing between me and my success was doubt, because I allowed my mind to feed me things. And I'm a hostage to that unless I learn, like, okay, well, you know what? The only person who's thinking that thought is me. I can change that thought. But how many times are we hostage to our own thinking? And so that's why I use that terminology so that we can go, right,
Mm.
that big moment, right? I don't, because we have the visual again. I don't want to be a hostage. I don't want to be stuck, right? Okay, so then add a comma after the sentences, right? Breathe, step back, have an action plan, do some movement. Even if you just stand up and move over an inch, that's movement. Great, yay, high five.
No, and it's a good point. And I suppose using the words hostage negotiator, it shows the severity of the situation. And I suppose using something with such a connotation to the name, using that word actually, you have to take it seriously. Otherwise, we do face things like addiction, we do face
Yes,
depression, mental health, anxiety things. If we don't address it and if we don't try and get ourselves moving, like you said, even slightly in one direction.
right? And then I added the word negotiator behind hostage. Okay, there's room to grow. I can do this. I can do that. What's my consequence for doing choice A? What's my consequence for doing choice B? Oh, I've got room now. I can think about what is it that I really want to do? What am I telling myself that is an old story of an old version of who I am?
Mm. Why do you think, a bit of a tough question, I think, but why are we better at it with our friends and family if someone was in the same position that we're talking about ourselves, we'd be the first ones to try and support to do that. But why do we let ourselves down and not give ourselves that same friendship, I suppose?
Well, because we feel better if we're helping somebody else. And again, it's that external feeling, right? We feel like, okay, um, my problem will go away if I'm helping somebody, right? But you can't help other people fully until you've helped yourself, right? And you know, there is something good to be said too, but you know, about helping other people. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to try to get people, okay, don't help, right? But your question was like, why do we feel better helping others? Because it has taken the thought or the programming off of ourselves and we feel better, okay? But then when those people go away, guess who's left? You are, right? And so help yourself do the work internally and then go help others, because then they're getting a better version of you. They're getting the full version of you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think I'll take a full personal thing. I'm so grateful you've even said that. So I've done some fundraising for the last few years for a charity, and then me and my wife, we discussed it, and I said, I'm just going to take some time for me. And it was almost that feeling. It was lovely. Well, while things were going on were brilliant, but my weight gain was happening. I was rushing here and there. I was in a bit of a cloud. And when you finally stop, like you say, it's that point of, well, now it's just me. And sometimes you've got to owe yourself that time as well, isn't it? To help others, you do have to help, like you say, you have to help yourself to make sure you're fit to then help others. Is that okay?
Yes, right. Yeah. It's like, you know, they do this all the time. They a lot of people show this all the time. When you're on a plane and they give you the oxygen mask, you give it to yourself first,
Yes.
right?
Questions, don't they? Everyone's, but what? But yes, you can't help others if you aren't if you're not helping yourself, especially in that situation, of course.
Right. And when we think about like self-care, I think that generally we'll think about, oh, I'm going to take a bubble bath, I'm going to relax. Those are all great. I'm going to go do yoga, I'm going to meditate. Wonderful, great things to do. If you're not using it as a band-aid, I need to recognize, why am I going to meditate? And I need to come back and I need to sit and I need to be conscientious of, I'm really stressing about that. It's still here. I relieved it for a while, but I didn't look at it.
You're right.
And when we don't look at things, problems get bigger, and we get bigger until we wake up and we notice we might gain weight. It's like, okay, the body's saying, look, do you see me now?
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not taking care of something.
And again, that's a fascinating point again, because you say that's yes, we go to a 30-minute yoga class, a 30-minute spin class, a 30-minute this. The other 23 hours and 30 minutes of the day, we're doing nothing about it. But we expect that change. We expect that that's going to make that big difference. But really,
Yeah.
you pay less time to that than you have at every other aspect of your day. So why would it change? That's an amazing point. That really
Right?
it brings me on to the fact that you are, and again, I am feeling every inch of this motivational speaker that you are, because you are educating me sat here today just listening. So if you're doing that to me, my listeners are blessed to hear to have that. But this engagement aspect of your work, so this speaking, why is it such an important part? Obviously, you do a lot of the writing, but why
Mhm.
do you feel it's just as equally important to put that voice to it as well?
Because words have power and energy, right? And I'm not helping others if I don't give them another voice to hear. Because if I can only internalize my thoughts, right, then my thoughts are only going to be as good as the person thinking them, and that's me. And so I want to be able to show people that, oh, there's some similarities. I've had that life. That has happened to me. I could change that. I'm not alone. Because I think a common denominator is when people are having difficulty, we self isolate. because we tend to think that, well, no one else has this problem. Well, I can't tell anybody. This seems kind of silly. And we withdraw again, right? And then we just sit there, and then that whole pattern goes through again. But if I can have a voice, and if I can say, look, yeah, there were lots of times when I was in the mud, right? And there was lots of times when I was thinking, what the heck was going on? But this is how I came through it. If it works for you, great, right? And so to me, it's important to have those words, because again, if I just write a book and close it up, it's ended. But if I talk, then someone will hear it, and someone else will hear it, and someone else will hear it, right? Because when we close a book, we tend to kind of forget about the experience, and we put it on the shelf, and maybe we'll mention it down the road to somebody. But the energy of all those words stop as soon as you fold that book.
It's absolutely, and again, it's about reaching people, isn't it? It's about reaching that person. The reason the podcast started was I wanted to speak to someone like myself 10 years ago to say, look, that, you know, we can look at this, we can have hope, we can do whatever we want. There's help, you know, we want to help people. Sometimes who we're talking to, and it's an amazing point. You did mention there, like you said, about going through things. So is vulnerability a big part of what you go for as well? Do you share a lot of personal experience, or is it something that you kind of just use in kind of fleeting examples, if you like?
No, I share personal experiences, because if it's fleeting, what would be the point of me doing that? Right? We all have our fleeting moments, but what we talk about is other people want to hear and identify with, yeah, that's me. Okay, that was a version of me. And then if I see this other person who's had that past version of me, maybe I can get there. And I'm lifting them up, hopefully, in little increments.
And it's gone of the days of the heroic Superman figure that's impenetrable and nothing can get into it or about them. People are much more interested in hearing that human aspect, and like you say, identifying themselves from the stories they're hearing, but also seeing the hope that they can persevere and get through that and come out the other side with that positivity. Is that fair?
Yes, because now we have a visual, something's real, because a book is just there, it's something physical, right? But we can imagine that somebody's there, but we're still not going to believe maybe the words fully. But then when you see somebody talking and saying, yeah, this was my life, this is what happened to me, oh, I can relate. Oh, and look, she's talking on a stage. Well, maybe I could do that. Doesn't have to be a stage, but maybe you'll feel good enough about yourself to change a behavior, to change a thought.
That's brilliant. In terms of what drives you then, so again, we talk about gratitude. So what on the podcast, but what are you grateful for? Who are you grateful for, and who inspires you to continue to live this way and to deliver what you deliver?
I inspire me to keep doing this. I have to fill myself up first, right? But apart from that, every experience, I've gotten to a point in my life where I firmly believe this. Every person who caused me the most grief, I am eternally grateful for, because those learnings have helped me be the person who could do the work that I'm doing, who could work in addictions, who could go, wow, that was a huge problem. I don't wish that on anybody. You know, if I could redo my life, I'd probably still do the same thing, because I'm so grateful for what I learned from it. I would just like it to maybe not last as long. Right? So I can never find just one person ever, but I will tell you that I've had a gift of writing ever since I was a kid. I knew it, I owned it, I could feel it in my sense of being. I like to write. People always told me, oh, you should be a writer. And well, okay, never did anything about it, right? Like I would write and then wouldn't show it to anybody. And in my middle 50s, I had a friend who was writing a compilation book. And she said, Lori, I want you to write an ending chapter in it, because at that time I was getting more into doing my own private sessions and things like that. And I allowed myself to own my gift and to put it in paper and do things. And so I am grateful to that person for doing that, of course, right? Because that unleashed everything in me to go, yeah, right? That writing that book became my comma to a lot of other accomplishments in my life.
Absolutely. And again, there's so much to take away from what you've just said there. Again, the gratefulness for someone giving that opportunity, that saw that you had value in what you were going to write, probably before you saw the value of what you were going to write in it. So absolutely. But I think there's, you know, you've been true to yourself in what you're saying, that thanks to yourself, that thanks to that. But also, and it's really important people really hear that bit, that you're thankful for the challenges, you're thankful for the hard times,
Yes.
you're thankful for things that weren't going right. Because when we're sitting in that dream job or the dream way of life or whatever, we only really appreciate that if we've had to get there through that, but through those bad times. Is that fair? You'd only appreciate it when you've lived to get to that point.
Well, you sure do. And if we can hold on to that concept of gratitude, it serves as our pause button when something does go, a little bit wrong in your life. I have a sign in my Jeep. I own a Jeep, and I have a sign in the passenger side, so it only reflects to me, and it's all muddled on the outside. And the sign that I see every day when I'm driving is things are always working out for me. Okay, so I remember I was directing a play one year, and it was winter time, and I was a little bit late, came out of my building, I had a flat tire, had AMA here in Canada. Okay, so the tow truck came and they put air in, and he's like walking around my vehicle, and he goes, "What's that sign say?" And I said, "Things are always working out for me." "Oh, bet you don't think that now, do you?" I go, "Yes, I do actually, because I have AMA. It's working out. You're here. This is great. Things are working out for me." So in the moment, I'm able to kind of have my own pause and go, okay, why is this happening? Let me find it, because then it kind of tones down whatever you're experiencing. If you can just allow yourself to go, okay, wait a minute. Okay, how is this working? Gets you through that moment just a little bit. And then we deal with it, and then we can look back and go, okay, boy, what was the lesson? What was the value?
Mm, that's incredible. I mean, I just want to pay a massive, massive thank you. Before we close up today, I really want to say thank you, because you are living true to that. You responded to a message I put to social media to say, look, I'm relaunching my podcast. Does anyone want to come and have a chat? We've never met. We've never had a
Oh,
communication other than the emails and backwards and forwards, which we were doing. But you went and said, yeah, we've created this moment. We've created this chat. It's been one of the most inspiring chats I've ever had in my life, and listening to it's been immense. And I pay you huge gratitude for that. Getting me to think differently in 50 minutes of recording a podcast episode, it is something that I am now grateful for. That day of myself putting out the podcast post to say, does someone come on? But even more grateful for you coming along and saying, how do I sign up? How can I help? And I'm so grateful to you for that. So Laurie, thank you so much for agreeing to do the podcast and bringing the value of what you have done today.
You are welcome. I appreciate you. Thank you.
No worries. Finally, before we let you go, people are going to be anything like me, and I'm going to find out more about you, I'm sure. But if there's people that do want to find more about your work and what you're up to over the next few months, if you can give people a bit of a links to where to find you, and yeah, what you're going to be up to if you can.
Sure, great. I have a website, and it's called Echo of Yes. So ECHO space OF space YES. And then you put in the www. So if you go to that website, I actually have created a PDF for viewers of Inside the Orange. They just have to put in their email and you'll get a nice, it's about a 10-page little PDF with some of the things that we've talked about. There's an action step, there's some things for you to do, there's some introspection. That's my free gift to kind of like open people up to have a curious mind. And if it's not for you, give it as a present. It's free, right? So you can reach me on my website and all my information is there. I'm actually hosting a wellness and writing retreat in British Columbia in the beginning of June. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. And I'm hoping to have my first TEDx talk, so we can put energy out for that.
Wow. That's incredible. We'll keep posted for definitely the TEDx talk as well to do it. But I will put all your the links into the show notes and description for Echo of Yes, of course. And thank you so much for supporting my listeners who do want to do that with the information you have. Laurie, thank you so much once again for joining us on this. And I'm sure people are going to want to find out more. You have really kind of inspired my thinking today, and again, I'm so grateful that we've been able to have this chat. And if there is more we can talk about, then you're always welcome back to discuss more on the podcast. But thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you, Rich, and I hope your listeners are going to remember to try to end your life in a comma for a couple of days. Expansion, right?
We'll end that with a comma right there.
And more to come.
Thanks for listening to today's episode, and we will be back for the season close next week, as we've brought you so much with this season. And we're going to be back. We are going to take a short break just to get some things sorted out and to do our epic 40-mile adventure. We look forward to seeing you next week to kind of go through those bits and pieces on that final episode. And as ever, we say goodbye and take care, but please stay tuned to find out how you can support the podcast and this year's Walk for Autism for Anna Kennedy Online, the 40 for 40 that we're doing. So as ever, guys, we'll see you soon. At the Inside the Orange podcast, we're about creating positive change through organisation, reading, activity, nutrition, gratitude, and engagement. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram at Inside the Orange, on X at Orange Watts, and the Inside the Orange podcast on Facebook. We want you to reach out and help build the community. We are back and on the road again. This year we are doing our 40 for 40. We are walking 40 miles for the Anna Kennedy Online Autism Charity, raising awareness, acceptance and promoting inclusion of autism and autistic people. We are going to be going out on the 19th of July for our longest walk ever, and you can join us and support us via our GoFundMe page, available in the show notes and description. Check it out and support us today, and let's make 2025 an amazing year supporting this great charity.